way. This is maybe to on the goal is to lose you also. To
you read it.
Yeah, to lose, but you find something else, and then
Yeah, sure, but is how an element of
disturbs
the conception and bring us to new solution. And something who is not calculate.
Yeah.
Is also with yes, Vera?
We have to put intervention theory in the classroom. Which words if you want to speak Italian is okay.
Più una domanda che è un po' la stessa, perché ho scritto qualcosa di cui non sai nulla al riguardo, nel senso, penso sia un po' collegata al fatto dell'imprevedibilità, perché mi sono chiesta durante una presentazione, mi sono magari immaginata una presentazione anche all'università, per esempio, se si inizia a parlare di un qualcosa di cui non si sa nulla, proprio zero, l'argomento meno vicino a te. Qual è la cosa da fare? Fingere o essere interessati, magari chiedere appunto, ammettere di non sapere nulla, cioè proprio qual è l'attitude migliore da
E come ti senti tu rispetto a questo?
Io personalmente, per il mio carattere purtroppo, mi sentirei abbastanza in ansia a mettere nella motina, mi alzo gli affari miei, però perché sono così, però sarebbe effettivamente un punto su cui lavorare di me stessa, perché appunto sono una persona estremamente timida sotto alcuni punti di vista ed è appunto una cosa che mi interesserebbe capire qual è l'approccio migliore.
L'approccio migliore dipende molto dal contesto, per cui sai, non c'è una risposta assoluta, però quella cosa che tu hai detto, chiedere, è una possibilità.
Infatti la parola che pensavo io, non so se la parola è contesto, no? Nel senso come creare un contesto all'interno dell'aula, all'interno dello spazio in cui poter favorire, perché specialmente con gli studenti spesso è difficile, no? Hanno paura di fare domande stupide, hanno paura di non essere all'altezza, di riuscire a esprimere un dubbio, di dover sembrare intelligenti e tutti uguali. Quindi come fare a creare un contesto, un'atmosfera che possa favorire questo tipo di relazione?
Dove il non sapere
ha un
valore.
I can only answer talking about what I try to do.
Obviously.
So in my case, Susanna, the first Claudia was talking about what to do when you realize you don't know about something that comes up in the conversation. So the first reaction is usually protecting yourself from this, while maybe you could sometimes simply ask and say, okay, I don't know about this, tell me. And Susanna was proposing the theme of the context. How do you create the context?
There are other strategies. E di parlare molto e di cambiare le
dipende molto dal contesto.
Io questo l'ho fatto spesso agli esami.
So basically, as a teacher who's trying to use this facilitation aspect, what I try to do is destructuring the classroom. So in Urbino, they already know when I arrive there, I need one classroom which is slightly bigger, and you can dismantle all the tables because the tops are not fixed. So you can simply move everything out of the room or use the tabletops to do like walls or something like this. So this is the first. They find the classroom doesn't look the same. I don't have a position. I use the circular position, which is traditionally the typical.
Now the dual teaching is really, for example, for me it's very hard that we have to do the dual online. But
I refuse to do
so. But we have obliged to do. I have to
and
stay.
You're obliged.
Yeah, I am obliged to stay there because there are the students but there are also the students into the monitor. I have the camera, so I can move from my position. I can talk, I can go into the room, I have to stay there.
This is a problem, but
You
I'm
understand
lucky.
this?
Yeah.
I think it's very important, the design of a room
Yeah.
is a design of a hierarchy.
Yeah.
When
Absolutely.
we was yesterday, was one table, you was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
This mean we are the
The
chef,
teacher?
the
Yeah.
teacher, and
Yeah, the
you.
students.
So it's il sapere è qui e il non sapere è qui. And to make a table round, say we are in the same position as also. So
And to remove the tables.
Yeah,
And even further, and for instance, what I do is that we go all out of the classroom and we do half an hour of movement together. And you see, I'm doing exactly the same things and sometimes I ask someone else to propose a movement, so I'm not leading the team. So of course, I'm still the person who's paid by the university for giving a course and giving them a grade at the end. So I am perfectly conscious that this doesn't remove the hierarchy completely, but at least it's a step in.
Yeah, some little things can move.
Avevi una parola?
Io sì, ho scritto comfort zone perché in realtà rispetto a tutto il discorso che appunto abbiamo fatto è la prima parola che mi è venuta in mente, che per quanto possa essere scontata in realtà quello che mi è venuto da mettere in discussione è se questa comfort zone poi sia veramente così comfort, nel senso che rispetto al concetto del fatto che l'imprevedibile sia poi così, cioè sia a primo impatto visto negativo, in realtà forse è questa comfort zone per noi ad essere negativa, per quanto sì, perché esatto, cioè ci chiudiamo dentro e la sentiamo come un qualcosa a cui attaccarci, perché ci dà sicurezza, no? Al contrario appunto dell'essere, cioè del concetto di imprevedibilità e queste cose di cui abbiamo appena trattato. In realtà appunto poi forse le cose più interessanti si scoprono e nascono proprio dal momento in cui ti rendi conto che uscire da questa bolla poi ti crea tutta una serie di cose che da dentro non puoi vedere, no? Però finché forse uno non fa questo passaggio è difficile.
Okay. Now she was talking about the comfort zone and how it's not as comfortable as we could consider, because it also limits our actions. Yes, I agree with you.
at all uncomfortable zones.
And also habits, well, of course, we could not live without habits, because every day would be, how many decisions, so we need them to survive, to keep going. But the important thing is recognize.
You speak about the coffee in the morning. No?
Yes, I didn't drink coffee, you see.
But also drink it.
And the fact is, the important thing is to know that we have those habits. Not to get, but okay, I know that I do this and this and this, and now I need them because they help me. But then in another situation, I have to be able to put them aside. So the comfort zone is useful in some situations because you have to, when you have to present. There's someone.
Est-ce qu'on peut demander à Camille, juste pour changer un peu d'ordre?
Camilla, Marta, there is someone.
Allô?
Sì, mi sentite?
Sì, ti sentiamo.
Altrettanto. Io avevo pensato alla parola estemporaneità perché secondo me c'è una correlazione con improvvisazione, però volevo anche sentire il vostro parere, nel senso che se sono due cose unite o hanno una differenza tra entrambe, e anche alle parole spontaneità e casualità.
Ma il primo è contemporaneità.
Estemporaneità.
Ma credo che dipende un po' da come la intendi. Tu che significato, come la interpreti, come la usi questa parola?
Ma io soprattutto nel senso quando mi trovo di fronte a dover improvvisare un discorso, mi verrebbe da dire che sto usando questo concetto di estemporaneità. Perché io ho fatto il liceo classico, quindi mi viene da scomporre sempre le parole in base al latino e quindi da ex temporis, che comunque è senza tempo, perciò credo sia sempre una cosa non collegata alla preparazione. Io la vedo in questo concetto, però non so se sia...
Diceva la relazione fra estemporaneità e improvvisazione.
Ma penso che tengano lo stesso mondo in fondo, cioè improvvisazione quando la usi come una forma di sapere è una tecnica che è sviluppata nelle arti, nelle arti performative, nella musica, e quindi se ti parli di quegli ambiti di solito usi questo termine perché è quello abituale, no? Però a me sembra appartenere tutto un po' allo stesso universo, questo termine estemporaneo che tu hai portato.
Credo, non capisce totalmente questo, una dimensione che questo mi ispira è il presente o il passato e il futuro, quando fa improvvisazione. Siamo da un tempo presente molto forte.
È solo il momento presente. Improvisation is an expansion of the present. It's like a focusing lens that makes the present very big.
Very big. And how you deal with the past and the future?
Well, they continue to regenerate, and then, but of course, improvisation doesn't last forever.
Yeah, but improvisation is based also on experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
The more experience you have, so the more past, I don't know, you have,
Inside of the present.
the more you can improvise.
I would.
Sorry.
No?
Yeah, no problem. It's to connect with what we have heard last week about on the section about body and presence. It's and this is why it's not dilettantism. The radical presence and improvisation is a technique, but not a technique in the sense of technique like machine organized. It's technique is coming from practice. It's practicing, and this is very interesting because we had with our colleagues who did interventions from biology to qigong and oncology, and they all spoke about this importance of body presence, but also of thinking is a practice, and to make this interrelation between memory, and memory is an information, it's an old practice, but which can create kind of programs. For example, if you are traumatized, or if you are, and the radical presence is to disconnect this information from emotions, which triggers the same old programs that you ever have lived. And this is all about stereotypes, about traumatization when it's a blessed memory, that we are not radical present. We are either in the future or we are either in the past, because we are always doing the same program. So it's a huge investment and, as you said, an attitude, but it's also a learning process, and it's an everyday practice. You can't decide now I'm perfect in improvisation. You have to practice. For example, qigong. If you don't practice, you fall back. Or if you play an instrument, it's the practice which is reinforcing our presence. And I think this is very important, because we are confronted, because this paradigm is process-oriented working and so on is very much present in design, economy. We have situationists who are advising the military. So we have all, for example, Israeli and military.
This don't.
No, let me just finish, Rudy.
This is not the problem of the situation.
No, Rudy, why I'm saying this is two things. I don't think that a word is sufficient. I think a word needs its context. That was why I'm thinking your setting is interesting, but it's better to say what and why, what for. We use something. That's why I'm saying the paradigm of improvisation is very much now process oriented. But what's often not, and that's why we have a lot of our participation and so on, and we have this what you yourself call paletten. What's the French name for Europaletten? So this is thing, aesthetics. It's this aesthetics of cheap material to do participative projects, for example, to build. And we have a lot of these things which are more connected to dilettantism than to collective development expertise. And I think this is very important to say. The improvisation you have in mind is really this technique of learning to be open to react and to bring all variables from the past, from the future, but to bring it to the present.
Thank you, but I only have a problem because it's almost 11 and I have to make an important call. Of course, I'm sure the conversation will continue when we
will make a workshop on this topic.
I just want to connect with what Vera was saying with the phrase from another book that I brought, which to me was very important, by a philosopher and dancer, American philosopher and dancer, Anne Cooper Albright, How to Land, Finding Ground in an Unstable World. And in the introduction, she writes, practice is a way of committing oneself to being present in a situation, no matter what the outcome. In this sense, it is always an act of improvisation, a willingness to confront what is unknown. Yeah. So this is, I think, summarize what I was trying to say. Yeah. I thank you for this space and also for disrupting my structure and making it more open. This is always useful. I will say
I just, can I say one thing?
No.
Just one now. Yes. I think that improvisation can be done in two ways. There is the individual, I don't know if you said this at the beginning, I'm sorry I arrived late. An individual can improvise, which is good also for our daily tasks, etc. But improvisation is fantastic when it's choral. And this needs exercise, needs teaching, needs different layers of knowledge that interpose. So the interesting thing about improvisation is the choral improvisation, and not individual one. But
no, I think we most discussed it in
another one. But this point is fundamental.
I think it's a very important contribution you do. Because we speak a lot about context, and I think improvisation and context has something to do with it.
No, improvisation is context. Because if you don't consider the concept, the improvisation is not there.
The start of a project is this, what we say, learn again to don't know, and enter in the present to construct, to confront you with elements who are in presence, and then you have to improvise.
And then also there's a moment where you reflect on what happened, which is of course an important moment of learning.
Thanks a lot, Silvia.
Grazie, Silvia.
Rudy, can you make a photo from the books? Just quickly put them on the table and just make a photo. There's a literature list, but since it's about visualization.
I write the bibliography in indication.
I know, but the photo of the books is nicer. It's also a partition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Grazie a tutti.
Grazie a tutti.
Ci vediamo dopo, sì.
E io adesso ho finito di da voi di nuovo, però non so quanto durerà.
Perfetto. Grazie, buona riunione, grazie a te.
Grazie. Il libro
Sì, ma
Avevo anche una borsa. Che ho lasciato. Ah, ce l'ho.
Bon,
Ciao Silvia, grazie.
I propose we go over this element, and now we have to make an exercise. I think it's the exercise what we have to do in this this semester each time is how can we represent this? How can we represent this knowledge of notes of improvisation on a catalog, how can we make the education? So I don't like this terminology of education. How can we transmit? How can we represent this element to say, okay, we take in the school a manifest. In this case, I think it's a kind of manifest of what are methodology of teaching, methodology of creating. So it's and this mean, and I come back. I presented last week also this book, Le dessin, les mots et le dessin, pardon. Non, le dessin et les mots. Who is from a Japanese guy, Bumpei Yorifuji. I like this book because he's full up of illustration. And this illustration we see here is very interesting because they say, okay, I design, I'm the guy one. And I have now to look how I design, I'm the guy two. So how can we make a kind of representation who is not only this is, but this is the expectation about this is. So the second, this distancing of what we say, who has to do with explication, with information design, or with other way to transmit something. So how can we do it in the same time with sensibility and with knowledge, with dates, and with openness, with words who make that another person can understand it without your speech. That's the point.
And just to bring some more urgency inside of it, we are dominated by this other paradigm, and we have to develop another attitude and culture. So it's not just to be in this room and to something.
It's too easy to do this in Paris.
No, Rudy, I'm not critical. Rudy, I'm not critical.
It was a joke.
It's not a critique. It's more in the sense of it's important that you are doing this. It's more in this sense that also we speak about the setting that after 1 hour you have to reactivate the thing. Now everything is online, others can use it and so on. There's an urgency why you are doing this, and we are confronted with very authoritarian systems of teaching, of transmitting, and so on. We spoke about this, and that's why it's important that a map of what you now are doing there will hang in the classrooms. Next to, and the historian teacher, for example, has to teach improvisation. And how does he do this in front of a dominant narration? And I think just to put a cartography of Europe, for example, and next to it your representation of improvisation, it changed the teaching just by these two images next to each other. That was just to give you the spirit. And precisely because I'm in Paris and my daughter is suffering of a stupid historic teacher, I need your map.
Domi and all the people who are online, I don't know how many you are, I think thousands and thousands. And we meet us again at 3 o'clock. And you can be part of the contribution. So you can also work on ideas. We are absolutely sure it's not finished at 3 o'clock. Hein? It's just intention, esquisse, des esquisses ou des choses comme ça. Mais comment on peut, I think we are, say it very clear, how can we make a panel who explain what is improvisation and how you can teach improvisation in a way of improvisation.
I read that Vera wrote briefly, instead of words, partitions. I read it somewhere popping up, and I was very intrigued by it. And I remember a book I really loved. It was Partition Culinaire. Of the designer actually who invented La Rouge qui dit oui. And Guilhem Chéron. And I think it's very interesting. For example, in his Partition Culinaire, I am the one who is never capable of following a receipt. A cooking receipt I always invent. Much more creative to follow and discipline to follow. You know, I always have to put my way in the receipt and what I cook, But in this Partition Culinaire of Guilhem Chéron, it was super. I could follow it, and I had the pleasure to follow it, because you could see, imagine a recipe, a food recipe, you could see the times of the actions, how immediately you could see how much time it would have taken to cook this thing. And on the other line, you had all the ingredients and the tools to arrive to this recipe. And visually, you could see immediately the recipe. For me, it was a genius book. I don't know why it didn't widespread. Probably it will come out again. But I think that the partition and the scoring in general, but then scoring is another thing. Research, as you know, it's an interesting element to treat when we speak about subjects that is unlearning, and to clarify immediately on a paper all the elements. You have the time, you have the ingredients, you have the tools. Anyway, so I don't know. It opened to my mind this, so I don't know if what you wanted to say. But thank you, Vera, for having said this. I don't know.
But I think in this case we are really to speak again about this book of Christophe Adel, because this idea of partition
also,
comes from this, and in urban planning, how can we think the city as an open partition? So we have some syntax. It's very difficult to change the place of the train station. You have some fixed element, but how can we think the city not as something who everything is fixed, but who we can adapt, the next generation can change elements. How can we think it as more more open?
It's super adaptable to the city.
You have the book behind you, Vera?
The PDF or the real book?
The real book.
The real book I have, the PDF I would have to search, but I can. I'm in the office, so I can. If you give me 10 minutes, I can.
10 is too much.
Five.
No, you have to choose. You have to choose.
Rudy and improvisation. You know what, Rudy?
Yeah.
Yesterday I was in a djembe session, and it's interesting because it's all about attitude to fill the interstice of a partition, or to have the capacity to open in between so that other information can come into the rhythm. And some is giving the stabilization, and others bring it in. But just by one sign, you can switch the role, and the other is giving the stabilization. And it's just about this, what you have said about sapere non stabilizzato. You have how much stabilization elements you need in which moment, because you also can have a very stable moment and then you can have a very open one, or you have intermediate, but it's all about this this moment, and this is really a practice which you have to train, because the stabilization grows when you know more variables, but open variables also. So we all know this. If we have practice skiing, you spoke about this, and you have a certain stability, then you can also be open for other forms, and that's why training or practicing is so important. So in that sense, give me 10 minutes and I prepare you a short presentation.
I think that one of the things that is very interesting at the beginning of the intervent of Silvia is also the context in which we use the words improvisation, because in Italy, for example, there is a
negative point.
Very negative point, because the Italians are someone who are very friendly and they can improvise every time, and it is not a positive one. And on the other, is that improvisation is something that belongs to the artist. And the thing that is important for me in the discussion of today is that improvisation will be a technique that everyone can use in his practice, no? And not only something or negative. So the idea is that you are in the classroom, someone asks you something and you try to find something in your mind. It is not this, I think. It is the idea to improve this relation through improvisation, not to try to resolve a problem in the moment. No? So it's really interesting that you can use these techniques to go on.
I have a word I would add to the, even if I don't know the beginning, but it's bienveillance. I don't know in...
Attention has this double meaning, but
because bienveillance è quello quando fai molto attenzione a come gli altri, cioè tra rispetto e tra... Cioè fai attenzione che per esempio tu, io adesso lo so, se io ti avrò in classe adesso farò un po' attenzione al fatto che magari non mi chiedi subito, ma ti chiedo io per andare un passo verso di te. Accortezza.
Sensibilità.
Sì, perché secondo me questo in un'improvvisazione è molto importante, perché devi essere anche ricettiva o recettivo di sentire cosa sta succedendo intorno a te.
L'idea collegati al contesto.
Sì, esatto.
Del contesto. Benevolenza.
Io credo che sia più tipo empatia anche, cioè il fatto di riuscire a capire cosa succede, i sentimenti e cercare, perché poi può anche essere pericoloso, nel senso se lei
Certo.
è timida e tu gli vai a fare una domanda, no?
Sì,
Quindi
sì.
l'idea è proprio
No,
di
ma
riuscire...
la domanda non lo fai in
Sì,
modo
appunto,
aggressivo,
dicevo,
perché
no? È
il
proprio-
bienveillance è proprio che capisci,
Sì,
senti cosa succede
appunto,
intorno.
Mattia,
Dunque,
Possiamo fare un po' l'organizzazione del workshop?
io devo andare a fare una seduta.
Dopo.
Yes, Bella, do you know this? No? Do you know this? No? I have to do something? No, you have to do this. So I do my best.
No, I
Keep cool, Susanna. It goes. It's just the part.
I know, we know.
I propose we construct the workshop around these 3 present students.
Yeah.
And we make 3 groups. Who you lead one group. Each of you lead one group, and we come to your group. So we try to divide. Are you? No, you are professional. You are not.
Yeah.
Just I am to say that I will leave around lunchtime. So
Okay.
No, but we began this morning, then
Yeah, you can present the book so we can stop the chat. You don't find it. No.
Yeah, but you should have from your last.
You don't find it. So
No, not so quick. I can.
I will do it for this afternoon.
Yeah.
I will find it for this afternoon.
If you tell me when I can.
We meet again at 3:00. Is this okay?
Yeah. I try to make 20 minutes workshop with the people here on it.
Very good. See you. Bye-bye.
I would love to be with you.
I also in Paris.
Oh, it's cold. It's 6 degrees.
Okay.
6?
Oh.
What?
Yeah, this night it was so cold. So stay in Milan. Stay in Milano.
this morning I was going out at 13 degrees in Tuscany, so it was also not so hot. Yeah.
Switzerland, it's snowing in the
Bye-bye.
mountains.
Snowing on the mountains.